The U.S. federal government's fiscal policy is on an unsustainable path. The level of our debt relative to the economy is not unsustainable. The path is unsustainable.
Do you believe the president has the power to fire or demote you, and has the Fed determined the legality of a president demoting at will any of the other governors with leadership positions?
Not permitted under the law.
Not what?
Not permitted under the law.
How do you assess the national debt?
We mostly try very hard not to comment on fiscal policy and, instruct Congress on how to do their job when actually they have oversight over us.
But is the national debt a danger to the economy, in your view?
In the long run, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path. And that just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy.
I have the sense this worries you very much.
Over the long run, of course it does. We're borrowing from future generations. It's time for us to get back to putting a priority on fiscal sustainability, and sooner is better than later.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
What is the proper relationship? What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents.
If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Not what?
Not permitted under the law.
Man, I love how shocked everyone is, because that's just basically the world of the general population would never think that that's his answer. If you were asked to leave, would you? No. And they're like, what do you mean no? What if you were asked to leave? You wouldn't leave? No. Can you believe that? It's so crazy.
Oh my God. It's a special time to be alive. And, seeing Jerome Powell out there no, I'm not going to leave. No matter what the government wants, no matter what you want, I'm not going to leave. There is still so much work to do. Yes, we got Trump in power now. After he gets inaugurated, all he has to do is stay alive and make it to, and even work. You know what? The best thing about this is if they take Trump out with J.D. Vance, right? J.D. Vance is even better. Like, honestly, yeah. He's the same, but he's more eloquent about his explanation. And we also have Elon Musk, one of the most powerful people on the planet. And like thinking about the future and where the Federal Reserve may end up. I mean, a lot of people say it's impossible for a system like that to be taken out, but we are under a renaissance of sorts. And we see people's vigor for the truth, for real data. And, I know it's kind of crazy to say, but abolish the Fed might be on the ticket within the next 15 years. We see the Cynthia Loomis movement for the back in the U.S. federal debt with Bitcoin. And I know it's a hopeful romantic in me, but by God, I'm going to remain that way. As long as we keep moving forward towards sovereignty and people's vigor for recapturing liberty continues, there is no stopping the will of the people when it really gets moving. So stay fast, stay hardcore about this shit, because we can accomplish quite a bit with the shift in power we just saw.
Yeah, and the Fed was always something that I subscribed to, but I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. I mean, I have it in my pictures up here every now and then. I'll put it in just to remind everyone that is a possible thing, that we're not stuck with this system. Mm-hmm. When it basically was installed in 1913, we've seen the destruction of the U.S. dollar and maybe the U.S. itself. I feel, and this is where I get delusionally bullish, but we were on a razor's edge here. And if it went the other way, I was planning on a couple generations, and it sounds hyperbolic, but a couple generations dark of darkness where it would take so long to turn around. But not unlike with the COVID hysteria, there was a road to redemption that we had to give people that lost their minds, right? So there's no point in the road to redemption having also a road of ridicule, right? So moving forward, how is the road to redemption laid out for these, the insanity we've been seeing on X with these women crying and stuff, and they all have bull rings for some reason. I don't know if that's part of the club, but how do we extend?
How you get in.
Right, you got to get exactly branded. How do we make this road to redemption? Is it just by policy? Is it just the world unfolding in a positive nature that slowly brings people to the road to redemption? But how would you map it out for those people?
It really, the concept of rights never being given back to the people, that kind of self-defeating mode of operation where people feel like, man, since there's no 2A anymore, I guess I can't have it. Or, since the food industry is captured, there's no way to escape it. That kind of mentality needs to not exist. We need to have positive vibration in your brain and knowing that you have an extreme amount of power as the person that is standing next to the people in your community that they look up to. Be loud and proud about it. You can compound that kind of movement, that kind of mindset, if you lead by example. So, just know that there is that extreme potential that we have, and there is a lot of work to do. We have Trump coming in, and we have JD Vance behind him, and all these wonderful people. But me, myself, I don't worship any politician. I worship God and Jesus. And I have a very religious base. So, Trump, great that he's coming back in, but I need to keep the iron to the fire on Trump from my position down in America to make sure that the policies that we need to be either rolled back or put into place actually do happen. We don't just let off the gas now that he's been elected. We need to keep pushing for transparency from the federal government. We need to keep pushing for an 80 to 90% reduction in federal government employees. We need to keep pushing for all of these things that we as people have been looking at. We've been seeing this bloated government just basically bleeding us dry, keeping in mind that we do, when you really add it up, spend about 60% of our value in taxes, be it one way or another: income, employment tax, property tax, vehicle registration costs. All of those different things add up in an immense way. And we need to keep that on the front end of our mind, because there is so much work to be done as far as rolling back the foot on our necks and how much money they're taking straight out of our pockets. Meanwhile, they print to infinity at the Federal Reserve. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, I've found there's a correlation between basically the people that were in my life that were so deep into COVID and the vaccines and boosters. I find they're just as deep into the Trump derangement. It's like no matter what comes out or what's laid out in front of them, they're just, they literally, and this is from someone that I talked to in the past couple of days, they literally don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's how deep it's become and how divisive the nature of politics has been, is that people on what they consider the losing end, which is not, they're not on the losing end. They don't even want to hear it. Yeah. It's crazy to me.
Like the idea of kumbaya is also something that, like, kumbaya, we can all get along. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that, some kind of allowance of out of control DAs and allowance of these law systems that have been used against us for the last few decades, honestly, should be allowed. So, I'm not of that opinion. And if you do kumbaya, we're going to end up in the same situation where they're going to lull you back to sleep, get a Democrat back in office in the United States, and then actually kickstart this World War III for real. As it sits right now, I'm feeling very hopeful that my son's not going to have to go overseas, right? As it sits right now.
It's amazing that you even have to say that.
But it is. And, and that's the situation. Like as a dad, I was looking at this situation like, okay, they're literally trying to start a 10, 15-year war with Russia and China. Like, what the hell is going on here? But we've seen a pretty positive response so far. Putin even is talking about not ditching the US dollar, highlighting Trump's strength. And, this is a moment where we did not want to see BRICS turn from, their words to hardcore movements against NATO. And we also need to see NATO defunded. We need to see NATO and this massive amount of money coming out of the federal government to the US stop. We did see the beginning of that. But we need to absolutely stop funding NATO in this push towards those nations. Let them be sovereign nations. Stop trying to have, it's just like this world police concept that we have in America. It's something we need to kind of reel this back a little bit and let them govern themselves. We need, and the whole, like how scary and dirty the word nationalism has become, right? Like, oh my gosh, you're such a bad person because you would talk about nationalism instead of globalism. I can't believe you.
No.
It's honestly not that dirty of a thing to think about. And wanting your own country to be responsible for its intake and output, and not utilizing these second and third world countries as your dumping ground when it comes to manufacturing is not a bad thing. It's really, really not a bad thing. So, we just need to start kind of leaning into this. And thank God we have this, on X, we have free speech platforms. I don't know what I just did to your YouTube channel by saying that word.
Well, I actually think that might change too. Like I've heard a lot of talk where they're going to go after the people that were behind the censorship, and I know Google is almost too big to rig, and they can try to they can try to do things to Google and YouTube or whatever, but I think it's out of their commission. What I've also come up against in the past little while is that's why I made the title "Are You Too Late?" is that a lot of people I'm talking to feel like, and we were talking about this in the months leading up to this, that they were too late, that they missed this bull run. And so, I mean, what would you say to the people that are sitting on the sidelines thinking they missed it?
Yeah, I mean, the idea that we're too late, definitely don't think that way, because where we're at right now, I did a write-up on what Bitcoin. First, I'll talk about how late are we on Bitcoin, and then I'll talk about how late are we on altcoins, because I think those are two very, very different conversations. Bitcoin now has a potential and actually a likelihood to be rolled out in the conversation of being a backing asset to the US dollar. Now, when we do see the Bitcoin Act, it's S4912 that Cynthia Lummis has put forward, it was going to die in the Senate and the House of Representatives because it faced a split House and Senate, right? Now that Trump and the Republicans have captured both of those agencies as far as having the majority votes, that bill, the Bitcoin Act, actually has a tangible potential of becoming law, which would mean the United States will be buying up 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 5 years.
Think about that.
This is insane. Absolutely insane to think about it. And just the potential of this happening, this is giving us the velocity in Bitcoin to get near or even above $200,000 per token. In my mind, and in the game theory mind of mine, I'm sitting here as China or Russia watching the United States move this bill forward and start to back their dollar. I'm doing it too. I'm thinking Bolivia, I'm doing it too. Third and second world nations watching what El Salvador's been able to do with their Bitcoin buys and now how much value they have. I'm doing it too. This is the game theory, the snowball situation that we are embarking upon. And with a captured Senate and a House of Representatives, I will say it that way. I'm not sorry. It's a captured situation. Now we have the votes. It's red. And this bill from a Republican out of Wyoming has a very tangible possibility of becoming a reality. So with that, I mean, if you're looking at Bitcoin at $70,000, but guess what? We have the velocity now to get near 200, depending on your risk exposure. Not too terrible of a bet right now. And with that, altcoins, okay? And just this morning, the ultimate signal of an alt season popped up. Cardano, the truest, most, this is the ultimate altcoin, man. This thing does not move unless alt season is coming up and around the corner. Now, Cardano, it's been laughed at, and a lot of people tried to get me to talk them out of their bags over the year, but I can't, because I feel like Cardano is one of the most decentralized proof of stake systems out there. And Charles Hoskinson is very, very vocal and involved with governments and being a part of the United States approach to crypto regulation. And seeing Cardano do what it's done, I mean, I have some bags of altcoins that have literally doubled overnight. Literally up 100% overnight. My Chainlink is now starting to outperform. If I would have left my value in Bitcoin instead of going to Chainlink, now my Chainlink is outperforming the Bitcoin move. And this is the most exciting time for me. I was talking about Bitcoin dominance peaking around 65% and then rolling over. If you include stables, it's at 60. And I really feel like we're about to embark upon a year where 100% gains overnight are going to be coming up 2 or 3 times a week. And people, all they can do is hope for just a little bit signs of weakness. Maybe some bad news comes out across the realm and gives us a week of downtrend. And I remember last cycle, those were the moments I waited to keep stacking into. But it gets very difficult to find a break point for altcoins when we do enter this stage, because this is the hype and euphoria. And the best part about it is that retail doesn't even know what the hell's going on yet. Again, they went back to sleep. They were dealing with all the things politically and what was going on in their lives. They don't know what's going. But guess what? When they realize that we're out here printing money faster than the Federal Reserve, again, the game theory comes into play. And everyone says, oh, retail's broke and they don't have money. Just go to the gas station and see how many people in dirty sweatpants are out there buying lottery tickets. No matter what the situation is, people speculate. And once Bitcoin breaks that 100K mark, I am of the opinion that's when retail will wake back up.
Well, here's a math problem for you. If the government sets aside 1 million Bitcoin in 5 years, that's roughly 500 a day, which is more than what's being mined. That's on top of MicroStrategy's daily buy, which is also more than what's mined a day. So now you have the demand is twice. This is just them.
Yep.
This is two giants is double the demand of the daily issue. So I have a couple questions. One, where the hell are they going to get the Bitcoin from? And two, what does that do to price?
You know, I mean, that kind of supply squeeze, obviously it should be factored in. The 200 to 250 is honestly just off of the purchasing. The supply squeeze, you know, it's scary to think about us going to 500 a unit. I don't even, you know, but a supply squeeze, it is basically impossible for me to tell where that price would actually take itself to if we saw nations compound on this on top of MicroStrategy, on top of BlackRock, and then you get Van Eck waking up, you get old school players like BNY Mellon, one of the longest standing banks in the United States, through this whole bear market and accumulation zone has remained open and bullish on Bitcoin. And they were telling, just no one was listening. BNY Mellon, one of the oldest banks in America, remaining open and bullish on Bitcoin. The game theory is incredible to think about. You know, the reason in me wants to keep my expectations at or just under 200K. But honestly, you know what? Like, if this is a long-term horizon, you want to see where value is moving to. It's moving towards electronic systems and electronic communication and electronic value. So if I'm looking at something that I want my son to have and literally create generational wealth, it's Bitcoin. The alt season, this is just for me to outpace seasonally. The Bitcoin is where I house the value. Bitcoin and real estate is where I feel like housing the value is actually tangibly going to happen at. And so I'm in this fun alt season that I think is just getting started, but what I'm rolling back into is land that I can produce food on and Bitcoin, because that's what my son and that's what my daughters are going to hold on to into their future, to change literal generations. I am going to be able to change literal generations with this. The population that's into crypto, very small compared to the grander scheme of people out there. So I'm really, really just very excited for what we've realized before it happens. And honestly, any signs of weakness in this market, that is at this point what I'm hoping for. This is the part of the market where it's like you've seen it go up and to the right so violently that the pullbacks are a gift. And so that's how I'm treating it right now. And I'm very thankful we never made it to 42. Very thankful we never did that, because there's a lot of potential for it. Honestly, like, we would have seen a very, very red candle if Harris had won this election. A lot of people go, oh, Bitcoin doesn't care. Momentarily, it would have cared. That would have been a great buying opportunity. I didn't quite get it.
Perhaps the last.
Perhaps the last, man. Like, and that election day, in 2020 on January 6th, we rose by 12%, even with Joe Biden taking it, but it was a smaller market cap, easier to move.
Yeah.
And now we got an 11% day on a much, much larger market cap. I mean, so things are really, really looking good. And I like James Coulter's comment here. U.S. dollar is now only worth 1,300 Satoshis.
Well,
I mean,
here's another riddle for you.
Yeah.
If retail doesn't wake up, right? So let's I know the probabilities are low, but and think about it. With the buying pressure of the American government, of Microsoft and BlackRock, just three, not let alone the other 8 hedge funds, and then the miscellaneous all over the world, right? So the buying power of those 3, if retail never wakes up and never apes in, will the bear market look considerably different if we don't have that retail sell-off that everyone's accustomed to and basically betting on?
I mean, I think absolutely yes, but regardless, I mean, retail's going to move the conversation and the hype and, kind of push the hand for a lot of banks and a lot of like kind of more local things. But regardless of how involved retail is with this is still going to push out beyond retail's grasp at a point. And I think the pullback is really only going to, like, the best kind of thing I could think about, the biggest opportunity in 2027 or 2028 would be at a $70,000 per Bitcoin level, which honestly, at the rate that energy is increasing in value, I don't see it happening. Energy itself is increasing in value. And, should we see maybe nuclear be pushed into place and then we start getting our electricity from nuclear over the next few years? Sure, but guess those plants take a long time to put online, and it's going to be a lot of startup costs, restartup costs for it. Bitcoin's baseline value is, in my opinion, derived from that energy cost baseline, and even with them trying to FOMO into nuclear over the next few years, I am going to be very, very surprised if we pull back down into the 70 range. More so, I'd be looking at the 100 spot as kind of like the in the future, 2 or 3 years from now, baseline floor for this deal.
Well, fractaliciously speaking, it's not just naive retail that apes in and FOMOs in, right? So what we could possibly see in this bull run is the institutional FOMO and the institutional aping in, and then the nation state FOMO and the nation state aping in. I mean, these are magnitudes higher than retail FOMO. So when you say 200, 250 or egads 500, that's on the table just because we've never really experienced institutional and nation state FOMO and apage. And if that happens, I don't even know if 500 is too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know where the top is, and in this conversation, it's about what is going to tangibly change my life immensely. That's where my sell points are, and then just reaccumulate as things get low. Like, I'm very, very happy to spend fiat dollar for crypto. But, there is a time frame that I have in mind to start laddering out. And, I do think that we're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated market. I don't think it's going to be continuous. So, my kind of laddering out and where I know I'll be able to tangibly change my life and stack more real estate and do those things is right around May, June, July of this year. And that's
sell in May, walk away.
Well, kind of deal. I have a hard time believing that BlackRock's going to allow 4-year maxis to outperform them in a major way. Because there are some very old school Bitcoin holders that, they know that pattern very, very concisely. And so I think there's going to be a variable within the blow off top time frame within 2025. And that really hasn't changed in my mind. Because everyone's expecting an October blow off. I just think that institutions are going to, they're going to change that just to a degree. So with how bullish everything is, the short-term Fed cut rates that we're seeing right now, I don't think inflation's gone away. I think that what we're seeing is just a momentary relief moment, and then, maybe 4 or 5 months of Fed easing. And then once inflation comes back on the books, they have to get more true with their data. They're going to jackknife the interest rates up once again. And it's not even helping the mortgage industry right now. I mean, the mortgage interest rates are still going up as the Fed rates are coming in and going down. So they're not passing that savings of the federal funding rate on to the average person. They're trying to consolidate real estate and Bitcoin all for themselves at the same time. They're trying to literally kill off the middle and lower class. So it's happened in lifetime, man. We have to be positioned and know when that sell point is.
Yeah, that's the tough part because, so the only people that can really change the market now are whales selling on exchanges, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't see the institutions. We won't see the nation states buying on the exchanges. They'll all be OTC. That's assuming that the OTC market stays liquid. There's going to come a point where the OTC market will be out. I don't know when that is, but once nation states and start aping in, it'll dry up pretty fast and we'll see that supply shock. And then I guess the whales can sell into that FOMO, but I feel like right now, I'm delusionally bullish, obviously, is that everything's getting bought up. You see a dip, it gets bought up. And I think it frightens the sellers because they're not pushing the market anymore. They don't have that muscle, and that'll eventually course correct their behavior in the market, and they'll be like, "Well, I don't want to risk it. It's not going. I'm not getting my 10% quick short off this, which is probably in the millions for them, right? So if they start netting zero or not as much, they'll just maybe cool it for a bit, and then they'll have no sell pressure because I can't see these institutions selling out their customers, so to speak, or the nation states.
No, and this is that time frame where you compare it. I feel like what we've seen with NVIDIA is kind of a precursor chart to crypto. Because NVIDIA, chip producer, chip designer, that's really showing the rest of Wall Street that the value is in computer data and computer systems. And he who holds the most power within that is going to have the position that's going to be the new guard. Like we had the .com bubble, and now we're entering the blockchain bubble. I mean, it's a matter of how far and high NVIDIA can go, which is another thing that's hard to understand or really put a top on it, because NVIDIA, it now makes up like 12% of the overall GDP of the Wall Street side. So a lot is riding on NVIDIA's back as far as that goes. But there's so much that hasn't been realized by retail, like the proof of power concept and like all of the things that the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense have been talking about when it comes to secure data sets and a nation state having a secure data infrastructure by using proof of work systems, Bitcoin. that hasn't been realized yet. So,
Yeah.
you know, once they see this stuff, and even smaller nations see this stuff, dude, I mean, these numbers that we see right now, I know are going to be looking like a gift, not but a year from now. And really, it's just about, you know, what do you want to change your life with? Like, what will change your life? And maybe for me, my personal, you know, thought process is not wanting some fancy car to drive fast and go catch a bunch of speeding tickets in. It's about giving your kids homes that are paid off that they don't have to worry about. It's about, you know, giving them Bitcoin that can last into the future and put them in a completely different class so that they can fight against. Because I think inflation is coming regardless. It's about outpacing that inflation. I think this is our best bet to do it with.
So, as rationally thinking individuals who are steeped in critical thought, let's take the other side of the Trump win. What are some blind spots that we may not even know we don't know as critical thinkers?
Well, I think the deep end sector. I think you know, companies like Panasonic and IBM using DPIN to not only secure their physical products, but they're going to be implementing, you know, this whole smart system, smart city rollout, I think is going to be accepted in places like San Francisco or places that, you know, are more open to that. It's not necessarily going to move into, let's say, the middle of Kansas anytime soon. But I think that DPIN, the upside to DPIN, the upside to real world asset class projects, and that's where Chainlink comes in as far as the real world asset side. DPIN has a slew of different projects that can be had, but also the AI rollout, AI projects, and making sure that AI is decentralized and cross-checked in a bunch of different ways is something I feel Microsoft, all these other companies are going to make sure are in place. And there's going to be a lot of winners. There's going to be a lot of losers in this sector. But the AI roll-up, I think that's where we're going to find our 1000Xs. I think that the AI project...
1000X.
I do. I really... And it's stupid to say, but this is...
Oh, yeah, it's there.
It's there. And, you know, we scroll through CoinMarketCap and we see all these projects. Yeah, sure. But there are a few 1000X projects that we're looking right now. And it's insane to think about, but this is something like AI is just getting started. Retail, they don't know about crypto, but they also don't know what's coming for them when it comes to AI. They don't know about the automation of their jobs. They don't know about the complete decimation of what they're used to, the complete change. And this is why we need to think about how to pivot and find new ways to make money. Because over the next 10 years, as AI is rolled out by these money-hungry organizations that are going to diminish their headcount and do the same, if not more work with AI systems, not to mention Tesla bots. You can buy a Tesla bot for like 20 to 25 grand, one-time payment. That is the lower end of a salary here in the United States.
Really? It's a one-time payment?
Yes. You can
and
buy
then
it
it
for
just
25
updates.
grand. 25 grand. That's it. And it never stops working. So people need to realize, like, companies are going to use these things. And the jobs that we think we have right now that are, oh, this is safe. Like, honestly, I was talking to my mom about, I actually think like crime scene investigators or people like that probably are pretty well set up because you have to have a human oversight. And I've experienced this automation rollout in the manufacturing sector myself through kind of a few generations. My father was a chemical engineer that he basically built IBM's printer location out in Colorado, right? So he built and began the original production side for this. And at first, they needed 800 people to operate the system, the site. Even without AI there, they were able to bring that capacity of how many people they needed on site down to 7 people over the course of 10, 15 years, right?
Crazy.
That's insane. And so now we look about AI being involved. That in my mind, likely is going to go from 7 people down to 2. So we need to think about how we're making our money. And on like blue collar jobs, as silly as they sound, plumbing, HVAC, things that need human interaction, dude, I mean, just think honestly about, can your job be operated by AI? I used to be in headhunting. Once I saw the technology of blockchain being rolled out, not without even the adoption, I was like, I need to get out of headhunting and doing interviews and this kind of front end intake of candidates and stuff. Because guess what? An automated system is going to be able to run circles around me. They're going to be able to go aggregate all the data way faster than I can. I was a researcher. Guess what research, right? You plug in your question into a few different sources and then cross-check your results out of Grok, out of ChatGPT, and you're likely going to outperform a researcher by days at this point. So, not graphic design. Think about where graphic design's going.
Oh, yeah.
Be honest with yourself about it, because the ways that we produce money are also going to matter. We retain value. We want to find things that will retain our value, but how do we produce? That's something we need to keep on the forefront of our mind.
Well, we generally carry our own bias when it comes to things we do. We think that personally you can't be replaced, right? But what I've noticed already, and I watch them, is crypto content that's almost completely AI. I can tell because I'm familiar with the AI voices now. There's only, for some reason, people they only like choose the top 8. So I know it's an AI voice, and I can tell the AI video content that just kind of sweeps in and out and it kind of rolls. And I know how that's processed. You just ask a question, write me a script on the 5 best things about Bitcoin. It's that easy. And these AI platforms will not only write the script, they'll narrate it, and they'll throw in B-roll. And it's pretty good because content's content. So before the AI revolution, I remember watching, just cheap content videos. Some guy in his basement with no lights and a brutal mic. But as long as the content was there, I'll watch it for 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
So now the content's even better, and it's got some, production savvy. I feel like that'll probably be the future of content to a certain degree as well moving forward.
Yeah, there's going to be a large section of people that are going to want that. The niche kind of personality economy, I think, is going to be something we have to lean into a lot more, because being a human and having a human approach is going to be something people are going to end up yearning more and more as things become more automated.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're in that upswing, but as long as you have a kind of a reminder of humanity to people, I think that's actually going to be something that's pretty important. And within this AI automation, we've seen AI is capable of writing script, but you still have to have someone overseeing it and making sure that it's done right and that it operates correctly. It's going to be not a completely automated system, but like a lot of people that aren't at the top of the oversight sector, that's where you need to start thinking about how you're going to make your money. You know what I mean? It's something that's kind of scary to think about.
If we go deeper into the election and back to the critical thinking, if you were to, what is the Trump administration blind spot that we potentially haven't seen or can't? We don't know what we don't know. So let's just pretend we're completely agnostic to it. What are some blind spots that maybe we haven't thought about, just to, take the other side?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm never going to do is put a chip in my brain from Elon Musk, even if and a lot of people are like, I can see the use for paraplegic or people that are down and out in that situation to use the chip. But honestly, I'm just never going to do it. And at times I do think maybe Musk is a wolf in sheep's clothing when it comes to getting everyone to take the chip. I think that he's probably going to do a pretty good job on cutting down the administrative gloat, the bloating that we have in the administrative state. But, that chip is something that I really am pretty terrified of, because it's going to be sold as something so positive. And then you're going to see the person next to you is going to have the chip and they're outpacing you on their thought process and stuff. And the loss of humanity is going to happen. So that is something that honestly I'm watching. Administratively, I think that, our rights to Second Amendment need to be held hardcore. And we need to make sure that, the silencing of the left is not something we want. We don't want a totalitarian control over people's speech. In fact, we should be rolling that back and fighting back against the ADL and what they've deemed as hate, right? We need to stop that. We need to stop that and make sure that it's not the pendulum, it's swung our way, but we need to make sure it doesn't swing hard the other way and take away the right of free speech across the board. In fact, we need more speech, because I think communication is very, very important for people to feel comfortable having. So, I know that unless you're like directly calling for a specific move of violence, I don't think that there is, a right for us to take away those rights of free speech by any means. So we need to be careful about that, because they've said some crazy shit over the past few years, and they're saying even crazier shit today.
Yeah, like if sometimes I see that people calling for violence, that if it was like under the Trump umbrella, someone was saying those things, they would be instantly canceled, and probably they'd have that open up FBI in like 10 minutes, right? But for some reason, I kind of see that lenience already taking place, because as the change takes place, that road to redemption has to stay open, even if they're throwing fireballs at it. That's to be assumed. People are going to be pretty pissed off that their team didn't win, but it's going to be a wild year, Drew.
Yeah, I know. And the reason why I'm saying that kind of ahead of time is I saw the protests are kicking off. And if you are in a city center in the United States, you're going to witness 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times the amount of unrest you saw on the last Summer of Love. So, with this being said, do not give up your rights to self-defense, for the love of God, and keep your wits about you. Yes, we have won as far as if you're a Trump voter, great, but there's going to be a massive, massive response to this in city centers, and you need to retain your own rights to free speech, to self-defense, and your own rights of production in food, because we have not even gotten started on fixing the food industry. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of rollbacks, and it's going to be a very, very hard-fought uphill battle. So you just have to stay strong. It's going to be a very cataclysmic next 4 years. The next year in crypto is going to be amazing. But with that, I just urge everyone to make sure you're out there getting land that can produce food. Take control of your finance through Bitcoin and cold storage. Take control of your food production through farm goods that you can make yourself or your local farmer, and take control of your own self-defense. Become aware and capable of doing so. You treat your body as a temple, and make sure that you're physically capable of keeping everyone safe. And with that, I love you all.
Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video.